Good evening, everyone. It's Monday, April 10th, 2023, and it's 4:35 p.m. This is the regular Housing Authority meeting. Martha,
Chairman Sahadi. Vice Chairman Underhill.
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Commissioner Bentley.
Here.
Commissioner Maderas.
Here.
Attorney Souza.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The language for the open meeting law is as follows. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is citizens' input. Have anyone this evening to speak? Seeing none. Item 2 is resident input. Nothing tonight?
Unless you want to talk about the leak in our office.
No, I think we'll pass on that. You've discussed that with maintenance, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 2 is the minutes of the postponed regular meeting held March 20, 2023. Do I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3 is bills and communications. Vouchers. The voucher package is in your packet. Have a motion?
Motion to accept vouchers.
Second.
Any questions or concerns with regard to the vouchers? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 3 is the management reports. You have included the applications, the occupancy reports, your tenant accounts receivable reports, the work order report, you have the monthly Section 8 voucher activity report, the monthly personnel count report, the Director of Modernization's monthly report, as well as the bank investment and bond debt balance reports. Do I have a motion to accept these reports?
Motion to accept. Second.
Thank you. Any questions with regard to any of these reports? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 3 is your financial reports. This is the operating statements through February 28th, 2023. This is the 11-month statement. Do I have a motion for approval of the financial reports?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions with regard to the reports presented? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item D are the federal write-offs for the quarter ended 3/31/23. The amount is $151,473.82. The details included in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the write-offs?
I'll make a motion, and I just have a question after it's seconded.
Sure.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Just
Question, please?
for the people tuning in, because this is a decent-sized number, where do the write-offs come from? If you could just explain it for everybody, who are tuning in to understand where it comes from.
So, former residents who vacated for whatever reason, eviction, just so you're fully aware, it's jumped up again as we exit the COVID era, and a lot of the third party that paid the arrears for many of our residents, and also the eviction moratorium. So it's getting back to normal. If you look back a couple of years, 2-3 years ago, to where it was.
So you'll see that 2022 was 80,000, 2021 was 86,000, and 2020 was 92,000.
Yep.
Very similar.
Sometimes my questions are just to make sure that everybody tuning in understands what we're looking at.
Sure.
And looking at the documents, so.
Excellent.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Item C is the state write-offs for the same quarter ended March 31, 2023, in the amount of $32,921.39.
Motion approved.
Any questions with regard to the state write-offs? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 6 is an update, Director.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a couple of things. I want to acknowledge Martha Gallagher for 36 years of service to the Housing Authority, and also Carrie Farias, our leased housing director, 37 years of service to the Fall River Housing Authority. So I wanted to thank them and acknowledge them for all their hard work and dedication to the Fall River Housing Authority. And the other thing I have is, over this weekend, the Housing Authority, through Resident Services, Joey De Silva, we collaborated with Citizens for Citizens for Easter egg hunts at 5 of our sites. So that went pretty well. We hadn't done it in a couple of years due to COVID, but now we're picking that up again.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions of our Director? Next item is old business. Item A is the temporary Associate Director of Property Management position. The recommended action is to ratify the appointment of Timothy Burke. Do I have a motion?
Motion to ratify appointment of Timothy Burke.
Second.
Martha, roll call, please.
Commissioner Maderos?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Bentley?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sahadi?
Yes. Congratulations. Next item on the agenda is new business. Item 1A is modernization. It's a change order number 1 for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at Fordney Apartments. The change order number 1 is an increase in the amount of $2,654.95 to the contract for the installation of multi-sensor camera and mounting hardware due to vandalism. Do I have a motion to approve this change order?
Motion to approve the change order.
Second?
Any questions with regard to this change order? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item B is a certificate of substantial completion for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at Fordney Apartments. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve substantial completion.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item C is certificate of completion consolidation for the security cameras and surveillance equipment project at Fordney Apartments.
I make a motion to accept the certificate of completion consolidated for Fordney, security cameras at Fordney.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item D is certificate of substantial completion for the security cameras and surveillance equipment project at North Rockcliffe Apartments.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item E is certificate of completion consolidation for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at North Rockcliffe Apartments.
Motion to approve certificate of completion consolidated for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at North Rockcliffe Apartments.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Item F is certificate of substantial completion for the security.
We have to take a vote on that, right?
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. Thank you. Item F is certificate of substantial completion for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at Benny Costa Plaza Apartments.
Make a motion to approve the certificate of substantial completion for security cameras at Benny Costa Plaza.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item G is certificate of completion consolidated for the security cameras and surveillance equipment project at Benny Costa Plaza Apartments.
I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of completion consolidated for security cameras at Benny Costa Plaza.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item H is certificate of substantial completion for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at Riley Plaza Apartments.
Motion to approve certificate of substantial completion for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at Riley Plaza Apartments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item I is certificate of completion consolidated for security camera and surveillance equipment project at Riley Plaza Apartments.
Motion to approve certificate of completion consolidated for the security camera and surveillance equipment project at Riley Plaza Apartments.
Second.
Do we have any questions?
I just wanted to remind the commissioners, this was done through a $250,000 safety and security grant that we received from HUD, and a bulk of that money went to the 4 turnkey sites to replace the camera system, and the difference went to Father DeFerrio to replace some DVRs, so.
Thank you.
Item J is a change order number 1 for the fire alarm control panel upgrade at James A.
I don't think we
Oh,
voted.
all in favor? I'm sorry.
Aye.
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 Item J is a change order number 1 for the fire alarm control panel upgrade at James A. O'Brien Apartments. Change order number 1 is an increase in the amount of $4,102 to the contract for the upgrade.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item K is certificate of substantial completion for the fire alarm control panel upgrade at James A. O'Brien Senior Apartments.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item L is certificate of completion consolidated for the fire alarm control panel upgrade at James A. O'Brien Senior Apartments.
Motion approved. Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2 on the agenda is miscellaneous. A is the kitchen appliance contract. The recommended action is to award a 3-year contract to the lone bidder, Hayer Appliances Solution, DBA GE Appliances, with 2 separate and distinct yearly options to renew at the sole discretion of the Housing Authority, in the amount not to exceed $490,942.
Motion to award 3-year contract to Hire Appliance Solutions.
Second.
Any questions? I'm sorry, I just have a question. Is this to replace them? Is this to replace the appliances?
As needed, yes,
As
throughout
needed
all our sites.
over the course of 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item B is the integrated pest management contract. The recommended action is to award a 3-year contract to the lone responsive bidder, Waltham Pest Services, with the Forever Housing Authority option to renew for 2 additional years at the sole discretion of the authority, and the amount not to exceed $748,040.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any questions with regard to this award? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item C is for a 2023 Ford F-150 pickup truck. The recommended action is permission to purchase a truck from Empire Ford of New Bedford in the amount of $8,615.
Motion to approve and a question once it's on the floor.
I'll second.
2023 Ford F-150 for $8,600. Just explain it for everybody. Is that because we dropped the cost down with the other items in the past that we've...
We traded in
Yeah,
a
that's what I
truck
thought.
that we had. We actually did
On
better
the
than
Stratosphere.
expected. Yeah, so the net to the housing authority was 8,600, which
Thank you.
was better
Appreciate
than
it.
expected.
So the trade was $40,200.
Because if it was just
We don't get
$8,600,
it.
I want to know where you got it from.
We'd all go out and get one, right?
And I might sign up for one. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item D is the window replacement project at Father Vincent DeFario Village. The recommended action is to award the contract to the lone bidder, Door and Glass Innovations, in the amount of $23,589.
I'll make a motion, but I do have a question on that.
Second.
Just my question is, how many is this for?
This is for the...
Or is this for repair as it goes along?
No, this is not for, well, it's repair replacement, so our last REAC inspection, we had health and safety failures at the management building. We have the security mesh screens that protect the windows from people, and they weren't operating properly. They're the original security screens from when the building was constructed. So these were major deficiencies. So this is, I don't know, Commissioner, how many there actually are. Ed, I don't know if you have that number.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So we have a bunch of blocked egresses through the security screen. We're having them installed so that they can be removed for certain offices so they can escape in case of a fire. We had about 30 fog windows, 36 windows that needed balances. They were just dropping. Those were deficiencies also. And we also had 2 windows that were actually changed to escape doors in 2 of the offices. That's how bad they were for blocking egress. We thought it was important enough to have this done as part of our REAC inspection so that when we get another REAC inspection this year, we'll be completely compliant.
That's a good price.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, a lot of windows.
Yeah,
It is just the management.
still, that's a good price.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
All in favor? Aye. Item E is Community Housing and Development Organization, the CHOAC. Mr. Dion, you're here to discuss this with us.
Mr. Dion did make copies of some handouts. I think you may have already gotten them through Martha, but in case they're different, you have them.
All set?
This is a friendly meeting here.
So if you could
Better
just
be.
give us,
I'm used to city council meetings, so.
if you could, we know, just an overview first and then
Yes.
questions.
First, again, my name is Michael Dion. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Fall River. Tonight, what I'd like to speak to you about is the Housing Authority establishing what we call a CHODO, which is a Community Housing Development Organization. We normally typically receive almost $2 million in housing funding per year, and money needs to be set aside to be spent through a CHODO organization. We also have received close to $3.5 million in home ARP money through the Reinvestment Recovery Act that needs to be used for the development of housing in the city of Fall River. In discussions with the mayor and your deputy director and your executive director, we had a meeting a couple months ago concerning this nonprofit type of tag or organization. What it does is, CHODO is the only organization that can use HUD funding to purchase and rehab or build new housing in the city with HUD funds. I have several, 2 or 3 CHODOs right now. Some are, a couple of them are not operative. What we're looking at the Housing Authority and the discussions that we had was based on the expertise of the Housing Authority in running and, working in the affordable housing field. So what we're looking to do is we have several projects that we've been looking at throughout the city. They are projects that are good projects that would be some, game changers in the housing development. And we're looking for the Housing Authority to see if they would join forces with the Community Development Agency and see if we could bring some of those units online. We're in the negotiations right now for those properties, so I wouldn't want to say where they're at, but they are in the city of Fall River. In the past, what I've done, so you know, we've built multiple single-family homes throughout the city. So I think it could become very, very beneficial to the Housing Authority in your self-sufficiency program to maybe be able to get some of your tenants to qualify for those single-family homes. I know in the past that we've made you guys part of the lottery process to do that. The other aspect of this is, I don't know if you remember, the original legislation for the Watuppa Heights says that the property has to be turned over to a nonprofit agency. This would probably be beneficial in determining how we go about redeveloping Watuppa Heights in the future. So I'm here tonight if you have any questions. You probably do. CHODOs are a little different than your regular nonprofits. They're set up with low-income representation, so in some of the documentation that you have, the board needs to be 1/3 represented from low-income people. It would be separate in terms of operation from the Housing Authority. You could have some of your board from the Housing Authority on the board of the nonprofit. They require you to have staff on the nonprofit agency. You could use certain staff from the Housing Authority until you build up your CHODO. I have CHODOs that started 10 years ago that have over 150 units now in the city. They have a full-time staff, executive director, and they're bringing in somewhere around $1.5 million to a little less than $2 million in rents per year. So it's just I look at it as another tool in your toolbox to provide, housing opportunities for people in the city. Don't all ask at once.
Anyone have questions?
So I'll step up because that's how I am. So as a housing authority, it is within our purview to make sure that we are providing the resources for people who need it, right? So I'm on board. There are people who need it. I want to figure out how to help them. There's another side of the city that looks at Fall River providing more of an opportunity for low income or no income opportunities more than anybody else in the state. So we're saturating our market. We're kind of skewing the balance of what our housing is in the city. So I'm trying to figure out, I guess, on a few prongs. You talked about the benefits. What are some of the repercussions of that? And really, are we talking about single-family homes? Because I like that idea. I like giving people the opportunity of kind of progressing through this process and having single-family homes and having some type of ownership or a duplex, and kind of, it's different than your standard, the way we're operating right now, which I think we're saturating the market. So on one side of me, that's what I'm supposed to do and provide as much of that as possible, but I also am asking questions on whether or not that's the best case scenario.
Well, it does really two things. In terms of residential rehab, it's bringing properties that we know we have an older housing stock. It's bringing them up to compliance with codes. You also have to realize that the housing that we do through CHODOs is offered to people making 60% of the area median income. It can go 60% all the way down to below 30%. The first-time home buyer, buying their first home is 80% of the area median income. We have a big housing problem right now in the city. We have a very, very low vacancy. People are being priced out of the market. There is very, very little affordable housing. I'm seeing rents increasing $400-500 a month. People who have been paying rents at $700 a month now going up to $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. And I'm assuming you guys probably have a waiting list that's a mile long to get into public housing. That's the first thing we usually tell people. Go down to the housing authority. They come back and they say, yeah, the list is like 5 years long. So I just think we're not looking at taking housing and clustering it and making it into, low-income housing. What I'm looking at is, doing a single family, a duplex, doing a 3-family, a 6-family. Right now, I've been looking at a property that has about 11 units. We won't go over 11 units. We're required to pay union wage over anything over 11 units. So I don't see it as a further saturation. I see it as providing the housing that is needed right now. I mean, we have a real big problem with our elderly. People are just being priced out of the market.
I appreciate the explanation, and I tend to agree with you, and I'm certainly appreciative and understanding of the idea that we're looking at maybe duplexes, and it's not necessarily all these clusters of housing. The only thought is, and I'm in favor of this as a whole, is that I find Fall River to be bearing an unfair burden for solving this problem for people who do have, these are not made up issues. You know it's true, I know it's true, I see it in my day job, right? This is an absolute issue. In my role as a housing authority commissioner, I'm in favor of this, right? But I'd be remiss if I didn't at least say, hey, are we taking on more of a burden unfairly than any other community in the state? So that's my only point. Housing Authority, Jason Burns says we need to do it. There's a role for what we do. There's a need, and I'm in favor of it, and I appreciate your explanation. Thank you.
I want the board also to realize that the money is granted to the nonprofit agency, so there's no requirement to pay the money back. We're required to do 15% per year of our annual allowance, but we've been doing closer to 80-90%. We don't have a lot of mom and pop or single-family homeowners coming in to borrow money from the Community Development Agency. They just can't afford it. So we've done a series of a lot of different projects. We did 11 units at 64 Durfee Street, the old Durfee Tech building. We did 11 units at Curtin Lofts, another 11 units at Fall River Knitting Mills. And then we also have a lot of small, we just brought out another 32 units through different types of chodos in the city. I really have one chodo that really works very well. They know what they're doing, but they're overburdened with 100 and something units, collecting rents and trying to do new developments. So I need somebody, an organization that's more experienced.
I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you.
So quick question, in terms of tenant selection criteria, does it adhere to the criteria that we currently utilize, or how does it differ if it does?
How we do it now with the chodo is through, we have an affirmative marketing policy, which requires us to pre-certify that the tenant will meet the income restrictions. We also do, background checks and stuff like that. we require a credit report, and then basically do it kind of like on a lottery basis or first in, first serve, first come, first serve.
So do city residents get any kind of preferred status in this process?
No, they don't. We would have to look at, we could put preferences on it if we wanted to. I've put preferences on several for veterans housing. We could also put preferences on it for city residents.
I mean, that is one of the topics we're discussing
Yeah.
here, right? Is the lack of options for our residents.
I would say 99.9% of every Chodo project I've done has Fall River residents in it.
Yeah, okay.
But we would have to line up those, we'd have to sit down with the housing authority, look at what their tenant selection policy is, and match it up and make sure that it doesn't exclude anybody. I don't think it would. I think your tenant policies would probably do very well. We don't, one of the things that the community development does not do is, you make your policies. The nonprofit makes their policies. We want those policies to make sure that they follow HUD regulations, but we don't dictate our policy on a Chodo.
Thank you.
Is this going to create another list other than the long list that we have now? Is it going to be a separate list?
I would say that it will be a separate list. I would say that the list is going to be very, very small because we don't do big projects. It's not going to be, a 25 person list or 25 slot list. You're probably talking about doing one project a year. That, like I said, could range up to 11 units. I see you being able to offer those units to people who are currently in the housing authority, people who are in your self-sufficiency program. Could you reduce your big list? Yeah, you could by adding these opportunities. It won't reduce it dramatically, but if you do an 11-unit property, you might be able to lower by taking 11 people out of the housing authority, you could probably put 11 people off the list into the housing authority. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing housing as a chain. What I'm seeing is, and I'll just get off real topic real quick, we have over 100 people in our shelters in the city. To move those people out of shelters, you got to get some type of what we call permanent supportive housing. To get permanent supportive housing, people can stay in that housing for as long as they want. So I gotta thank the housing authority. We sat down, we put a program together, small program called Moving On. It was 20 vouchers. And now what's happening is we're reducing our, we're opening up slots in our permanent supportive housing so that more people from the shelter can move into those. So it might take people off your Section 8 waiting list. Our rents are very, very, they're even less than probably the housing authority rents. You're looking at a 2-bedroom apartment, probably around $900. So what happens with a Chodo is, for us giving you the money to develop the property, we require you to put an affordable restriction on the property. The most you can go with an affordable restriction is 20 years, which is new construction. So usually it's around 15 years. So 15 years, you have to rent to a certain income level, and you can only charge a certain rent. Okay? Those properties also can accept Section 8 certificates that are over the fair market rent also. So a fair market rent right now for a 2-bedroom in the city under our program is somewhere around $900. Where the open market, I know somebody that just rented a 2-bedroom on Flint Street for $1,700. So our rents are a lot cheaper. There's other things that you can do in the Chodo if you're doing single-family homes. We work with several banks throughout the city, but you could also have the homeowner take on the loan for the construction and re-amortize that loan. We do loans at 1%. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to make to make the housing affordable.
Will, in this program, will this limit the people that are already residents in housing to have to be part of the FSS in order to be considered?
No. I'm just assuming that the people in the FSS, hopefully I said that right, have been building up their capacity to own a duplex or a condo or, something like that. So that's why I only use them as an example.
Joanne, go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. So you referenced some other chodos, curtain lofts, Fall River Knitting, Durfee Tech.
Those are developers. Those are the developers that did the building. You can work as a developer, a sponsor, and an owner when you're a chodo. Most of the time we do it with developers.
Okay, but when you were referring to us, you were saying 11 units over the upcoming year is what you're proposing, is that correct?
No, what I would propose with the Housing Authority is probably something small to try first. Probably either a 3-unit, a 6-unit, a single-family unit. Right now I'm looking at another piece of property that has 18 units with commercial on the first floor and housing on the second and third floor.
And currently in the city, how many units conform to this chodo program?
I want to say right now there's probably about 300 units in the city that are owned by chodos.
300, okay.
Yeah, the main chodos are the Community Housing Resource Board, Community Action for Better Housing, PICAN, which is People Incorporated, people improving neighborhood communities and neighborhoods or something like that. And we just brought on the Preservation Society to look at doing preservation projects in the city. If you have a chance, go by 95 June Street. It's a 4-family that was just done by the Preservation Society. It's a 4-unit building, and it's on the historic register. I think the house is like 100 and something years old.
Okay.
Take it right by there. That's one of the ones that's been done.
Thank you.
Mike, I had a couple of questions. First, thank you for attending tonight and enlightening us on this.
You'll get my bill in the mail.
The first question is, could a board member on the Housing Authority Board also serve on the Chodo nonprofit board?
Yes.
Okay. And we set up a nonprofit. The nonprofit can contract with the Housing Authority for admin work, for maintenance work, and we...
Yeah, at some point, they usually give you a year and a half. That nonprofit will have to have its own staff. So what I've done in the past with like People Incorporated is they've taken a couple people, made the Chodo some of their responsibility, kind of used a percentage of their hours towards the Chodo, and we've paid for that. What we also do on every project that we do, we pay a developer fee, which is anywhere from 15 to 20%. So if you're doing, like math, if you're doing a $500,000 project, we'll pay the nonprofit agency about $100,000 to do that project. They keep it, they use it for whatever they want. The rents that are collected on a monthly basis is not program income to the home program for HUD. You keep the rents, you do what you want with the rents. We do not skimp when we do a property. We make sure that it's 100% rehab, new boilers, new windows, new roof, everything. So that the main systems in the house, you should not have a problem with them for many, many years. So there's really not a real detrimental reason to have a reserve account, but some people do, but we always do the entire property. Windows, doors, all of that stuff.
So Mike, we would be responsible for the 501c3. We would theoretically have our own board. The 501c3 would file its own taxes, do its own annual reports. When you're saying "we" all the time in terms of the development of this, who is the "we"? So are you paying to, but are we, this new nonprofit, going to have to hire the developer, remodel the property? I mean, you're funding it, but who's doing the work?
Correct. What usually happens is that when we're doing a project, we will use the Community Development Agency's architect to do all of the plans, okay? We will send it out for bid through our office in conjunction with the CHOTO. The CHOTO will sign a contract with the construction firm.
The
Okay.
CHOTO being the separate entity.
The separate nonprofit.
So it's not the Florida Housing Authority.
Correct.
It's the separate entity.
Correct. You'll make sure that that person is licensed and insured and all of that stuff. We would give you money for soft costs up front, which means you wouldn't pay for any of the insurance on the property. You wouldn't pay for any closing costs through the attorney's offices, any of that stuff. If we were doing a land purchase, or if we were doing a purchase of a building that's already there. If you built a single-family home, you sold it, we would pay for the real estate sales commissions, okay? Once the contract is signed, okay, construction would take part. At that point, the architect would be involved in making sure that the job is on track. There's a lot of paperwork to this. There's a lot of contracts. There's a programmatic agreement that would be signed from my office to the nonprofit agency. My office would go out on a weekly, usually bi-weekly basis to make sure that the construction is being done correctly and being done on time with the architect. The payments would be done on, as you well know, AIA documents. It's the payment will also not be approved unless it's approved by the nonprofit agency. So it's really the Community Development Agency working in partnership with the CHOTO, with the contractor, to provide that, end result of an affordable housing unit.
So you normally do this then with nonprofits that already exist, that already have staff.
Like I said, I got 3 of them right now.
So they're already familiar with the nonprofit recording and reporting requirements, as well as having their own staff. They're just allocating some of their staff.
Yeah, the
For us, it
reporting,
would be completely new because we're not a nonprofit.
correct. The reporting requirements are very easy. They're simple through my agency. The only thing that you'd be taking on that's just a little bit more difficult would be you would have a separate nonprofit that would be required to do all their finances separately.
Right. So all the accounting would be separate, the
Correct.
IRS filings would be separate,
Correct.
and most of these people have staff that are
Well-
already assigned. I mean, I'm familiar with community housing.
The Community Housing Resource Board has 2 staff members. They have an executive director and like
Community
an
for-
office manager.
And Community for Better Housing has staff
Community
as
for
well.
Better Action, we don't do any work with them anymore.
Okay.
They have a very limited staff, but we don't do any work with them. The Fall River Preservation Society hired a consultant. They did their first project couple weeks ago, it finished a couple months ago. It started a couple months ago. They're still working on it. The main one is the Community Housing Resource Board. Okay, that's the one I've done the most with. They're the ones with about 120, 130 units. But I've worked with them for a long time. I've been working with them for 20 years. So it's pretty simple to do a project. And the projects that we've done haven't been huge projects. Some of the projects that we've looked at, the mayor's looked at, I've looked at, is going to require more expertise in housing, more experience. I would not use the other CHOTOs to do some of the projects that we've looked at.
But we would have to.
Not to scare you.
Right, no,
I don't want you to
but I'm
think.
just still trying to figure out the logistics of the whole thing, because then we would have to, if we don't have individuals that are being hired specifically for this nonprofit, we would have to be able to allocate by time
Yeah.
certain individuals that are gonna work for the nonprofit.
I wouldn't hire any staff until you get to a certain level. Okay? If you do 2 or 3 projects, and over the next 2 years, say, and you're sitting on $250,000, $300,000 of developer fee, then I'd say, yeah, go out and hire yourself somebody that knows housing development. I wouldn't go out and hire somebody right now and do the first project with them. I would try to do it with in-house labor. My office would be very, very involved. I don't get really involved in the Community Housing Resource Board projects as much because they have a lot of experience.
Right.
But when you start having to collect rents for 150 units, and it's just 2 people, it becomes an issue, and the director has some health issues, so I see us ramping down with them quite a bit in the future. So I think one of the stumbling blocks is having to create the nonprofit accounting part of it, because checks would not be made out to the Fall River Housing Authority.
Correct.
The checks would be made out to whatever the name of the nonprofit would be. That nonprofit would be cutting checks.
Right.
You'd have a chairman of the board that would be signing contracts.
Right.
You'd have to get, usually the typical chair of board is 6 to 8 members. 1/3 of those members can't be more than 1/3 can't be city employees. There's also a restriction on political appointments to it, but there's a real big push to have resident participation of the low-income community. So I could see maybe some of your residents wanting to maybe take part in being a board member.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm good. Thank you, Mike.
Mike, do you have
Mike,
any?
just a quick one. Who would be the record owner of the property? Would it be the nonprofit?
The nonprofit would be the owner of the property.
After
You
the-
go out, you do a P&S agreement. If it was land or if it was a building, the nonprofit would be the signature on the P&S.
Okay.
We would provide the purchasing amount to the nonprofit. We'd set up a closing. We'd use whatever attorney you would want to use, do the closing, and then the deed is recorded in the name of the nonprofit agency.
With the restrictions, right, of course, right, for a low income?
Yes, there would be there would be an affordable housing restriction put on it. And if anybody would like to see an affordable housing restriction, I can get it to you guys. If anybody would like to see an application or an actual physical project, I could copy the file for you. I mean, we do a lot. I'm really summing it up really quickly.
I know you do.
We do a subsidy layering review on every project that we do. We're doing ratios. We're doing, it's pretty intense. I'm just giving you the quick overview.
And I know, I'm a little familiar with it, but I haven't seen it in a long time, but the insurance costs too, would it be covered by community development under?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What happens is at the time of the closing, you got a settlement sheet. All those costs on that settlement sheet would be covered
Okay.
by the community development agency. So what we would do is, if the purchase price was $300,000 and the closing cost was say $5,000, we'd give you $310,000 at the closing, a check. You'd pay the soft costs, you'd pay the purchase price, and you'd walk away with a little bit of money just to keep, insurance going until we can get specs written on the project and get the project up and running. Usually our typical Chodo project takes 6 to 9 months to do. It's not a quick process. A lot of the times what we do if we're going to build a single family house also is we use Diamond for labor to build the house. I mean, I wouldn't be here you know, we wouldn't have asked the administration here to do this if we didn't think it was a good thing. I look at it as like another tool in the toolbox for the housing authority. And I can tell you, you'll have my 100% commitment to making sure that if you do get into this, that we do a good job, that we will not fail.
I believe it.
Any other questions of Mike?
Are there any other housing authorities that you're familiar with that are engaged in this currently?
I believe that Lowell, I think Worcester, I've heard of several other housing authorities becoming CHODOs.
Thank you.
I don't think New Bedford is, you know that. I don't
I
think
don't
New
believe
Bedford
so.
is.
I've heard of Worcester, because I'm on the board of Mass Union of Public Housing Tenants, and I'm familiar with a lot of the people up there, and I had heard, I really didn't know what it was, but I had heard that CHODO being talked about at meetings, so,
Another HUD acronym.
yeah.
Right.
I have one other question. Earlier, you brought up Watuppa Heights. So how does that all play into your thoughts?
Well, I can't really discuss Watuppa Heights because I know it's in litigation right now. All I can tell you is that the original legislation calls for 26 single-family homes, 13 that have to be available to people earning 50% or less, and I think the other 13, 80% or less. And in the original legislation, I think I'm right, Mike would be able to tell, it says that the property should be turned over to a nonprofit agency. That, to me, that project is a real big undertaking. Is it even financially feasible to put 26 single-family homes for 30% or less and be able to sell them and be able to develop them? And so I just think it would be, you know, when I look and say, you know, how many nonprofits are there out there that would be able to handle that type of development? Is there a way that this nonprofit could co-own or co-sponsor or co-develop the property? And that, you know, that's up to you. That's up to you. Those were conversations that, you know, the Coogan administration and myself and other people at the table have had in the past. You know, who's going to develop it at what point? Who's going to be in charge of it? I know it's not going to be community development. So, I mean, I think a nonprofit agency that you somewhat have some control over might be it might be very beneficial when developing that property. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Thank you.
All set.
All set. Thank you, Mike.
Cool. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike.
Thanks for having me. Have a good evening.
We know where to find you if we have further questions. Okay, item F is the open meeting law complaint filed by Patrick Higgins dated 3/11/2023, and corresponding complaint allegedly filed on 2/13/23 with insufficient notice to the Fall River Housing Authority. The recommended action is response by the General Counsel to Attorney General's Office and Mr. Higgins. Do I have a motion to provide our General Counsel to respond to the Attorney General's Office and to Mr. Higgins?
I just wanted to let you, the drafts for both complaints are in your packet. I handed them out tonight as well. One of them is more of a, the second one was more of a draft for the March complaint, but it was a follow-up in regard to addressing with Mr. Higgins while he was here, giving me a copy of the complaint, so we're not filing it, so that we are filing answers in a timely manner, and he had sent it to Chairwoman Sahadi individually, so.
Mike, what was that one I just got tonight from him about?
I don't know anything
didn't
about
see
one
it?
tonight, no.
Okay.
Well, anything we can address it. We can address them. I mean, anything that comes in is being kept on a spreadsheet. We're keeping track of everything, making sure that the board receives the complaints in a timely manner. If the board meeting is not within the 14 days or 15 days as required by the open meeting law, then I would ask for an extension to the Attorney General's office, and they've always been very generous with the extensions, rather than have the board meet specifically just for that particular complaint.
All right, do I have a motion?
I make a motion, no?
Did you make a motion? Jack made the motion. Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item G is amendment number 6 to the cooperative agreement dated April 10th, 2023. I have a motion to approve the agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 3 is personnel. A is the resignation of an employee. The recommended action is to accept the resignation of Alejandro Ramirez. He's the PH Administrative Assistant, effective March 15th, 2023.
Motion to accept the resignation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item B is the retirement of an employee. It's the retirement of Michael Lanez, effective May 4th, 2023.
Motion to accept the retirement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item C is the temporary reception position, the HCV Section 8 Department. The recommended action is to ratify Daisy Perez.
Motion
Go ahead.
to ratify appointment of Daisy Perez.
Second.
Martha, roll call?
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Yes.
Commissioner Bentley?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sahadi?
Yes. Next is executive session. Item A is the union negotiation update for Unit A. The anticipated executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting law may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion to
Does
go
the chair
into
so
executive
declare?
session.
Does the chair so declare?
The chair so declares. I said that.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'll make a
Second.
motion.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Martha, roll call,
Commissioner
please.
Bentley?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Maderas?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sahadi?
Yes. At this point, this will be the end of this evening's meeting. We don't have any intention to come back out of executive session, so thank you, everyone, for attending, and we will see you next month. Go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.